Well, good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the Governor's EMS and Trauma Advisory Council meeting to order. Stop it, Justin. Good morning. Good morning. Go ahead and roll call. I'm here. Deidre Blankenship.
Present.
Greg LeMay.
Here.
Wade Olson.
Here.
John Creech.
Here.
Taylor Reckley.
Here.
Robert Gonzalez. Oscar Salazar.
Here.
Kelly Weller. McCara Trusty.
Here.
Alan Welch. We do have a quorum. Notified Robert Gonzalez, Kelly Weller, and Alan Welch. Every year, this meeting always falls usually during graduation. And when you're at a college and graduation, you have to be here. In fact, I'm being chauffeured back by my boss to make sure I make graduation tonight. So we understand why they are gone and thank them very much for letting us know that they're not going to be here. One of the things in this business, guys, is that over a short period of time, you meet a few people. Over a long period of time, you meet more people than you'd ever think. And the longer I'm here, the more people I meet, but also the older I get, I'm watching a lot of my mentors leave, retiring or dying. And since our last meeting, we've had two people that have been involved in emergency health care that have left us. Many of you all may know when these things happen, sometimes it's sudden, but it's always one of those things that makes us think about how precious life really is, even though we're trying to take care of people every day. We lost Shay Watson from NetTrack. If you've been here, everybody knows who Shay is because that smile will stop you. Every time you see her, you knew exactly who she was. She was executive director for the NetRack. And Shay passed away after an illness, and I think it was an illness that probably very few people knew about. Saw her at November at conference, and she wasn't there in February, and you kind of think, okay, fine, got plenty of stuff to do. And then we were notified of Shay's passing, and certainly going to leave a huge void there. Also, Henry Barber. If you know Henry Barber from Calhoun County, Henry died in April. Henry had been a steadfast participant in EMS for a long, long time. Right there, besides EMS, his passion and pastime is fishing. And he loved to do that, and we've lost two giants. And if you would with me, please, let's take a moment of silence. Thank you. I know that none of you have tried to get into the Dishes website over the past month or two or three, and and I know that when you did, you were able to get everything that you needed, and everything popped right up, and you're able to go. Somewhere in the transferring of information for the agenda for us, there's several items that are left off. So we're not going to be able to discuss those today. I don't know. I know it's still down for maintenance and not sure when it's going to come back up, but we'll just work with what we have. This committee met April 15th in Corpus Christi in conjunction with the EMS Education Summit. And I'll talk about the summit here in a few minutes, but we met there. In the beginning, we did not have a quorum, but we did have a quorum a few minutes later after a couple of people, because of traffic and flight delays, were able to make it. I'm just going to kind of give you a quick list of things that were done. We can't discuss it because it's not on there, but we can just tell you what was done. We did meet talking about advanced practice and advanced community paramedic, looking to see if DSHS give us some clarification and guidance. We did submit letters to, after meeting before that in Georgetown, a combination of medical directors, EMS, and education met in the North Central EMS Institute, which is the big manual out of Minnesota that a lot of people have looked at. We looked at it in the beginning Dr. Malone, you were there. Dudley, I don't have my glasses on. I can't see if Dudley's in the back or not, was there. And we kind of looked and said, you know, this is probably the direction that we want to go, adding some things that Dr. Malone had. And McCarran Trustee was nice enough with MedStar to get us all the information that they had, because right now they kind of wrote the book. So we're able to take all three. I did hear back from the EMS Institute. They wanted a little bit more information. The letter that we sent them asking them to please consider this a formal request to obtain permission to use the documents in part or in whole for our continued review and possible adoption in part or whole to establish the criteria for our program. If granted permission, we will certainly cite the authorship of the Institute. The Institute did send me a letter back, and they're asking us for a little bit more information before they grant us full authority to use that for the state. But I can tell you we moved great leaps and bounds forward. That we're down to now 3. We'll combine those 3, bring those out for public comment, hopefully by the August meeting, and try to have something forward to for everybody to look at for the November meeting. We also looked at the Education Training Manual. DSHS committee was there and worked with us as well. This particular document has not been incorporated into rule, and I believe it's going to be used more as a technical document. Brett, that is correct, right? Okay, that it will be used as a technical document. There were still some committee members who wanted to look at that and say before it became a technical document, just wanted to look at a couple of things and make sure we had some things up to date in the manual. So there is a DSHS committee of what's the term? District reps.
Yeah, just a staff work group.
Staff. Okay.
It's a staff work group, and Fernando Posada is leading that. So if you have any comments, just send them to him.
So we have moved that one forward. Also, we had the Stop the Bleeding, which I'll move here in a moment because that one is on the agenda, and we can talk about that one. Development, which was item 1, review and update DSHS training manual. Number 2 was to develop a functional job description for EMS personnel as it relates to the American with Disabilities Act. Lots of discussion on that particular topic. Some concern looking at accommodations, try to make them equal all the way across the board. As far as we can tell, National Registry doesn't have a functional job description that we can use. So as we were going through there, and I know at our school we have people that have accommodations, and trying to be more open-minded and accommodating to people. And someone brought up a good point. I think most of us have a tendency to look at the end goal instead of should we allow this person to participate. If we know that this person will still not be able to get certified, can we stop them from taking the course? And I think that's where we had a little discussion, was just because someone can't complete it, does that mean that they can't take it? Does it mean that they can't use that for personal growth, even though because of their disability they might not be able to participate in lab, or certainly might not be able to participate in a clinical setting? So we have suggested that go to Don Jansky to take a look at it and give us kind of a legal opinion on where we need to go or what we need to do with it, and trying to also gather some information to see what other programs in other states are doing so that we're not in trouble.
Jody, can I get some
Please.
clarification? Did you actually write up the question and send it to DSHS?
I sent it, yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
One thing on that, the National Registry, I did some checking. They still use the 1996 functional job description out of the curriculum. Their plan is to look at that in 17 to see if they need to update anything. So that's what they use as their guidance for people coming in that need disabilities, waivers, or stuff like that.
What happened since 1996? Did they just kind of forget and they?
No, there's not been a need to update it but with the recent ADA changes that include oral exams and stuff. That's when they're going to pick that up as a group to look at it again, or to see if they need to revise it for their purposes.
Okay.
And the state hasn't revised ours because they are our test, we use National Register as our testing, so there's been no need for us to pick that up and revise that for us.
Right. Thank you. Committee, any discussion on item 1 or item 2?
I think we need to nail down to which degree item number 2 is our responsibility. I am not 100% sure how it is.
Okay.
To me, it's a legal legislative matter, not necessarily. Was this brought to us more on the standpoint of approaching it from the training aspect?
Yes, with the things that we mentioned earlier, especially with my colleges, when we have students coming in knowing, why are you barring me from doing this or taking this course? You're saying, well, you can't complete it. Maybe I don't want to complete it, I just want to take it for personal
Experience to
growth.
knowledge.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Agreed. I mean, the legal aspect of this, I think, will be huge and tremendous. Should we be in it? I'm not sure if we're in it. I think we're just looking for clarification so we know what to tell people. Any public comment on items 1 or 2? Okay. Item 3, review progress in Texas effort on the Hartford Consensus. Stop the Bleeding Coalition campaign. During our meeting in Corpus, and this one is on the agenda, so we can talk about this one completely. We looked at what was available, and the committee actually had some really good thoughts and really good ideas. Wanted to get together and do a PSA, public service announcement, about this to the public using members of this committee to make a public service video. The media department at my place said, fine, whatever you want. They'll be more than happy to do it. The thing that we'll have to be careful about is not having an open meeting and not having a walking quorum. So we'll have to work through the logistics of who's going to do and video and make sure we don't violate anything. We might have to come to town one at a time or bring a camera out one at a time and do it. We've had a lot of discussion on looking to see what the RACs were doing, and I had asked each member of the committee to tell us what the RAC was doing. Oscar, can you tell us anything about your RAC as far as what's going on? And pull the microphone a little closer to you.
In our RAC I, we're actually trying to put police officers to get this tourniquets. The RAC is actually providing education that is needed. But like anything, it's grant funding for those tourniquets is one of the issues that the police officers have. It's not in their budget to buy those tourniquets, so that's the main issue there. The education is there, the drive, and to get it going, it's just there's money.
Okay, great. Karen, I'm going to skip you for a second. Wait.
RAC A has purchased $5,000 worth of tourniquets, and we have the train the trainer done yesterday. So we have a trainer, and we're proceeding forward.
Deidre?
I was unable to talk to Hot Rack, but I do see Curtis is over here, so maybe he can speak for that. And I also did not see anything on their calendar for Stop the Bleeding campaigns or so forth. So Curtis, can you enlighten us, please?
I like that shirt, Curtis.
Well, thank you, Jody. Appreciate it. We actually just started our train-the-trainer process on getting people trained for the Stop the Bleed. We're probably going to do the same thing. Closer or on the hill. So we just started. Oh, that's much better. We just pushed our first group of people through the train-the-trainer process through Stop the Bleed. We're going to work with Kelly from CT RAC to help push that forward also in our region. We have not looked at purchasing starter kits yet, and I like the idea. I think we're going to jump on board with that also.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Curtis.
Dr. Ella, if you or am I skipping you, or no, I would never skip you.
Everyone would like you to skip me.
You're both in the same rack, right?
Yeah, approximately, so
Okay.
we're CT rack. So we've also done Train the Trainer, and then we figured out quickly that we had a nonprofit group that was already doing both law enforcement and community education on TCCC and other community preparedness standards, and they very interested and are going to start incorporating this into their training as well. And they were already providing our people who completed their course with a tourniquet and some basic IPAC type supplies and things like that. So they jumped right on. Do you want to stick to what we're doing right now, or commentary about the program and feedback yet?
Feel free.
So I'll keep it short. The only feedback that we've gotten uniformly from our participants is that the course length needs to be cut way back, and that some of the nasty, gory pictures are probably not necessary. I think most of our participants want us to come in for 20 or 30 minutes. Teachers groups, community events, they say, hey, we got a 15, 30-minute time window for you, come do this. And if we adhere to the curriculum as it stands now, we say 2 hours, and they say, thank you, and thank you.
Good to know. Greg?
So RAC G, we're kind of in the preliminary stages. One of the things has already been kind of mentioned as far as funding and things like that. So there was an East Texas Giving Day last week, and I do believe that there was some funding that was secured for those purposes, and now we just need to move forward with the training plan.
John?
Golden Crescent, about 3 weeks ago, we had a hurricane seminar. Those are close to the coast, worried about that type of stuff. But one of the things our RAC did, we actually did showed the National Registry Stop the Bleed PowerPoints. I understand that everybody needs to keep it short and sweet. So we're in the discussion phase. I think that's coming up as far as implementing Train the Trainer, and then as anything else, funding and acquiring tourniquets.
Great. McCarran and I are in the same rack, so I had her the whole time. Melissa from TSAE, are you here? Tell her. We could, but you're here, so come on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm Melissa Kristen, the Emergency Healthcare Systems Development Manager from North Central Texas RAC, RAC E, Dallas-Fort Worth. And so far, we have had our first Beacon Train the Trainer course at Cedar Hill Fire Department. Thanks to Kevin Cunningham for hosting that. That was May 6th. We also assisted Jory in teaching the Beacon course at the Capitol. And also, we are working, I'm waiting to hear back from the Board of Directors from the Dallas Independent School District. We're hoping to be able to teach their school nurses in service professional development day and teach the Train the Trainer to over 200 nurses. And we're also looking into working with Dallas-Fort Worth Airport to see if we can start courses there. Now RAC has created Stop the Bleed kits that we bought just enough supplies to make 40 kits to give each one of our trauma centers. And that's where we're going to start out. Initially, we want to see, if our trauma centers will take these and then go out and teach, and then according to supply and demand and funding, we will provide more kits. But they will each, if I can show, they will each contain like 4 to 5 CAT tourniquets, hemostatic gauze training gauze because they're cheaper, and gloves and Carlix or roller gauze because the Harvard Consensus has recommended the 4 basic supplies in your kits. You can include more. I included a SWAT T tourniquet. SWAT in this case stands for stretch, wrap, and tuck. And those are extremely good for pediatric patients. The CAT tourniquets, the combat application tourniquets, tend to be a little bit bulkier on PD patients. And these SWAT T tourniquets are just, if you're not familiar with them, they're just long, like large stretch rubber bands, and you can just wrap them multiple times around, little arms and legs. So we've included those as well, and especially for school kits, for our school nurses who want to include those in their kits, would be great for that age patient.
Melissa, have you heard what Dr. Ratliff just mentioned? Has anyone said anything about the length of time? Or I've heard that, and
I personally have not encountered that.
okay. I know that yesterday while I was here, I just want to know, I'm now a train the trainer. Okay, so Beacon ready. Yeah. Any questions for Melissa? Thank you,
What's your
ma'am.
cost?
Sorry.
Cost for supplies for 40 kits and with some extra tourniquets. So 4 to 5 tourniquets will go in these bags, but I've got some extra tourniquets that I can give away, but it was a little over $7,000. It's not cheap. The CAT tourniquets, they're tried and true through the military. They're excellent, but they are expensive. They can range anywhere from $26 to $36 each. The Quick Clot or whatever hemostatic gauze you want to use is also pretty expensive. But that's why I use the trainer gauze. It's about half the price.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, so each kit probably is about $160. It's not cheap.
Our RAC 4.
Yeah. Any other questions for Ms. Christian? Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Appreciate it.
Committee members, thank you all for checking your rack and working. I'd really love to see the committee coming together for this cause. I know some of you have been looking for donations and grants, and I know there were several faces in here today that were in the same Beacon course with me yesterday, Dr. Malone and some others who were in there. We actually had a course here yesterday for about 40, so I think availability is going to become a non-issue. Certainly cost will always be an issue of trying to find them, but I think if we can find enough grant money and people who just want to donate, certainly I think we can work with the RACs and trauma services in order to make this happen. There's some discussion too about should these tourniquets be in the same box with your AED. We have a box already there. Are there other things that we can put in there? We'll be talking to Kelly Harrell later about what this committee can do to train the trainer at the EMS conference in November in Dallas. So thank you all, committee members, for your work and support. And I believe there should be a Facebook page set up shortly too for all of this to be there for the things that this committee is doing. So thank you very, very much. Any public comment on item 3?
I'm Loretta with RAC-G, and I wanted to add to what he said earlier about us. About 2 years ago.
Bring it down a little bit closer.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm too short.
Thank you.
Okay. About 2 years ago, I'm the HPP program manager for RAC-G. And about 2 years ago, we had a little bit of funding left over toward the end of the year, which we had to spend. So we got together with a couple of our fire departments, and it wasn't at that time called Stop the Bleed, but we got together with them and provided $5,000 each, and they came up with a list of items to go into a kit that they go into the ISDs and teach the nurses. So we're short-staffed. So, hey, great RAC publicity, marketing, get us out to the community. So we provided the funding, they put the kits together, and they were the military style, but they had the tourniquets, the gloves, the PPE, the masks, the whole 9 yards. And in turn, they provided to us the program, where they went into their school districts, and we had about 25 different school nurses. They took those to, and they trained them on those things. So that was just another, it's 2 years before the Stop the Bleed, but to me, it's the same thing. So we just we wanted to find a way to get into the school districts. So this was a great opportunity because they go there anyway and they train the nurses. And they help with all of their emergency response. 6 months later, they had a drill at the Longview ISD, and they had showed them how they used the stuff that was in the kits. And I just got a request from the Tyler Fire Department that they had to use the tourniquets. And it literally, we put it on a face page. It saved a policeman's life. So we put it on a face page, and because they're asking for money to replace those. But anyway, a good marketing thing.
Let me ask you, about how many people do you think you guys touch with your program? You said you were training.
They said they had 25 nurses in those schools, and because they used them at the fire departments as well. So obviously from the story that we got, and it was in the newspaper, it was, because RAC-G wasn't included in that, it was the Tyler Fire Department. But they use it to stop the bleed on a gunshot victim.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other public comment? Certainly we're going to continue to work with our EMS colleagues and our education colleagues to continue to further the effort, whatever we can. Committee members, any other comments on Hartford? Did I leave anything out from the past meeting? Moving forward, item 4. Discussion of all continuing education requirements for all levels of EMS personnel. I want everybody to take a deep breath, because when we open this up, we know. I don't want anybody to think that we didn't know when this is put on the agenda. And here's the reason why, guys. We've taken a look for the last few years at what's working, what's not working, what are we using, what are we not using. Is there another way? Are there other things that we can do? Can we reduce the amount of CE? Can we do a lot of things? And we've had a lot of people approach us and ask, what can we do? How can we change it? How can we make it better? Do we leave it alone? So this is that opportunity. This will be on the agenda for several more meetings as we begin to look and take public comment and look at what's being done here. You'll probably hear a lot or a little bit more about prescriptive CE from National Registry that's coming down the line. Can we align that? We've had discussion from some people saying, maybe if we align with National Registry. When I say that, the only thing I'm talking about is matching the CE matrix. For the educators in the room, if you've done a refresher course, and if you try to take that matrix to satisfy someone who's Texas certified and someone who's National Registry certified, you try to put them together, it doesn't work. You actually can't do it. You actually end up making people sit through a lot longer course depending upon which requirements they're needing, if they need national or if they need Texas. And in order to do that, it's kind of hard to say, well, okay, you need 4 hours of legal for this, but you need 6 hours. So no, you can't get up and leave for those 2 hours while the other 2 hours are here. You're going to have to stay for it and you have to pay for it. So trying to just look forward with some forward thinking. This will be a this will not be a one-time discussion on the agenda. I imagine this will be on there for quite a while as we look through that. When we were at our last meeting, we had discussion between continuing education and maintenance education. This is a topic that comes up quite often, and that is the first time we take a course at CE, when we take it again, is it still CE, especially if it's during that certification period? Or is it now maintenance ed, and we need to find something else to make sure that we are truly having CE? So in conjunction with this, I'm making sure I'm not violating rules. With this, we also looked and first heard about the jurisprudence exam, which I think a lot of you guys have heard about as well. We were talking about the content of that as it relates to continuing ed. How can that be done? How can that be folded in? Looking at, is there a different way to do that than what was first stated? And I think when anything comes out the first time, as you all know, when you're trying to vet something, it takes a while. It takes a lot of input from a lot of people and a lot of thought. So once people start thinking about the CE rules, what we need to do to move forward, what you'd like to see in the future, how we start to rethink some of the instruction. When online programs started years ago, many of us are going, this is not good, no, no, no. And I think over the last decade, we've probably all acquiesced to the point that online has changed. Should we have more, should we have less? So for that method of instruction, are we looking at content versus hours? And these are always little hot button topics because people are usually very deeply rooted in one or the other. That we need X number of hours, but do we need goals and objectives to meet those, and how are we going to do that? So that will be on our agenda for a while to work and start vetting that. Committee comments so far? None. If you're an educator or not, or you're a provider, and you have folks that you provide CE for. I know some departments provide CE for their personnel while they're on duty. I know others don't. Others will have them go out and do this. Want to start hearing from the public on any changes for CE that you all think might be helpful. Do you want to leave it just like it is? Do you want to start over? Shall we add some different caveats? I really want to open this up to the general public because I don't think this is for us to decide. I think this is input for the next couple of meetings from the public on what you guys would like to see your EMS CE look like. Hey, Eddie.
Good morning. Hey, Jody, while we're waiting for them to come up, can I just make a clarification? Because DSHS got some questions from licensees and certificate holders, stakeholders, that when National Registry said that Texas changed to the NCCP, National Continued Competency Paramedic Program, CE program, that all that meant was that the National Registry is using their new CE formula with the national content, the local state content, and the individual content, and 15% out of each one of those categories can be from online. The number of hours did go down, so for an example, for a paramedic, it's 60 total hours. And then there's those 3 categories that I mentioned with all the little subcategories that they have underneath that. There is no state mandated content. It all can become from your local agency or medical director. And so, yes, if you're keeping National Registry to recertify your Texas certification, which is an option, then you are doing now 60 CE hours every 2 years to renew. As long as you have a current National Registry certification and use that option, there's no need to try to translate your CE to the state CE. We're not going to ask for that. We want to see your National Registry certification. National Registry audits every so many people on their CE, so that's all we want to see if you're registered when you renew by National Registry is that you have the current certification when you renew.
Good clarification. Eddie, did that answer your question? Thank you very much. Wow. Sorry. No, thank you.
I stole Eddie's thunder. Let's see.
Well, and guys, that's just part of it too, in that we hear rumors, and there's a lot of misinformation and things that fly around. I don't ever think it's intentional. I think it's just the nature of the beast. So one of the things that's always nice is just bring something out, we'll vet it, we'll talk about it, and I've never seen Eddie turn around so fast and leave. Hey, thank you. Well, Dudley, good morning.
Vote Thursday.
It is vote Thursday. All right. Excuse me. When the EMS committee started taking input on rule changes to 157 way back in 2011, this was a pretty hotbed topic, and it got talked about in several locations around the state. And there's a lot of really good ideas out there. I'm kind of applauding what National Registry is working towards doing. I think there's a lot of merit there. It looks at the local system, it looks at the individual, and it looks at national things as well, right? So it's got 3 different criteria, but they don't prescribe it much below that, right? So if an EMS system, through their PI processes, has really great recognition of stroke, like 99% of the patients they say are strokes, and they're false. The ones they don't capture are nothing. In other words, they're capturing just about every stroke patient they see. I'm not sure they need to be mandated to do 2 to 4 hours of stroke education every 4 years. I think that time is wasted. It could be used better in other locations. The CE process as it stands today is a joke. And I think if we're going to spend time and we're going to spend energy trying to do this, I think we really need to throw away, all of us need to throw away our previous conceptions or perceptions of what CE is or should be, and then come around the table and really start to figure out through the data that's out there in education and other things like that, what it is that is really needed to allow people to advance their level of knowledge and advance their practice above what it is, above what they learned in school 4 years ago. So it's tough because all of the special interest groups, I'm not saying that in a negative way, all of the special interest groups have a deep passion for what it is that they're representing. And they all feel that because of studies in some place that all medics do not understand or cannot treat their special group of patients appropriately. And what gets lost in all that is the individual and the system, as well as what is going on in that system. So I would just like to encourage y'all, if you're really going to do this, really jump in it seriously. Start from scratch. Don't look at anything else. Let's start looking at the science. Let's start really evaluating what we think it would take to apply a system across 50 or 60,000 certified people to really try to improve what that CE process is and how it's delivered and all those other things that go into it. But thank you.
Thank you, Desmond. You know, Desmond and I have been working together in some meetings, and what we've found lately is that we're kind of agreeing on stuff. Yeah, I know, it's scary. In that everything he just said is part of what this committee understands. That's why I said long-term, long haul. This will be bloody, but I think in the end, we hopefully will have that product that we can all go, it's different, but it works. Mr. McDonald, good morning.
Good morning. Is there a couple of AEDs in the room? Because I'm about to agree with Dudley.
Wait, no, I'm having chest pain, sorry.
That's okay. Can I borrow your bow tie? I think that he's sort of right. We need to stop looking at continuing education the old way we've always looked at it. I think we do have to keep one thing in mind, that we now have, almost everybody in the state started off National Registry. A lot of them want to keep it. So we can't throw the whole idea out, because if they want to keep National Registry, they still have some prescriptions that have to be done. But the big thing we have to keep looking at is we have never done continuing education. We have done knowledge maintenance. We have, 4 years ago you learned about strokes, you're going to learn about strokes this year. 4 years from now we're going to learn about strokes. Those things always come back to haunt us. We always do the same things, and everyone looks at it and says, oh my gosh. And I think one of the worst contributors to it, I need a shield for this one, is card courses. I get a kick out of Beeson. Is he here? Someone's kicking. He says ACLS is for dentists and CPRs for lifeguards, but we take those courses ourselves every 2 years, sometimes every year. And there is absolutely nothing in an ACLS class that actually applies to paramedics, because we actually go above it. That's the lowest level of anything we do in this business. So we need to really kind of think about what we want to do. National Registry has a good model. I think we ought to just take what they have and kind of start with that, and then look at what we need to do to improve our growth. And we have to keep looking at growth. We can't look at, let's do the same thing we've always done. one of the things that's kind of missing from this whole picture is research. We have absolutely no idea how many hours it actually takes to maintain someone's certification and knowledge over their certification. So we kind of have to think of, Beeson's here? Good, I said something nice about you. Well, it was almost nice. So I think it is time to really kind of look at what we have to do. National Register has a great model. That's something we need to kind of stick with, and really the best thing to do would be take National Registry, just kind of mimic what they have, and then add our own local flavor that we need to. But you know, they have fewer hours and are accomplishing the same thing with it. We probably ought to just start there. But again, we have several meetings to discuss this.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, please.
Jeff, I'm in your corner. So I think one of those questions we need to ask, how do I know what I need to study?
What do we need to learn?
Right.
What's the growth?
And as a state, we may identify deficiencies. Like Dudley said, as an individual agency, we identify deficiencies. That's why we do this painful QA/QI process. And then what about the individual? How do I know what I need to study? What do I know that I've forgotten? What am I not current on anymore?
I think one of the things that's very interesting, and I hear this all the time, the term we're preparing an entry-level paramedic. We have a really good idea of what an entry-level paramedic is, but you know, we actually never go above that. What's a 2-year paramedic supposed to be like? What's a 4-year paramedic supposed to be like? Should we have growth plans that go along with a career, and that targets our growth, that targets our continuing education? What should you know? And I kind of think that, you know, when a special interest group comes out and says, hey, we're missing 80% of our strokes, well, tell us what that is. You know, one of the flaws with that thing they brought to us was they said we're missing it. They couldn't tell us what we're missing. They just want us to say the same thing again. That doesn't help. What is it that we need to grow? I think we need to have a plan for where people need to be at certain benchmarks throughout their career. That would be a good place to identify the growth that's necessary and develop a true continuing education rather than just knowledge maintenance. Because essentially, I have 30 years, I'm an entry-level paramedic because there's nothing's ever said what goes on.
Any other public comment? Dr. Beeson? What are your feelings on maintenance education versus continuing education?
Did you bring your slides? Yes.
Yeah, notice he's going to, yeah, Dr. Beeson was actually one of the participants at the Education Summit in Corpus, and the lecture was continuing education versus maintenance education. I think maybe we'll put you on the next agenda. How about that? Okay. Will you make that same presentation here?
No, I can't say it's not public because I have a TV.
That's true. You can't.
I saw your talk on YouTube from Corpus. I don't know where that
As we start this process, as we said earlier, there are 3 things on the table that we have to do. Number 1, we're going to have to look at National Registry. Number 2, we're going to have to look at the research. And number 3, we're going to have to look at the science. Okay? Those are the 3 things I think the group identified that we're going to have to look at when we start looking at continuing education. What's out there? What do we need? Are we taking care of our providers, both rural, frontier, and urban? Because some of those needs are going to be different, and we recognize that. Some of those needs, you know, in my part of town, 8 to 12 minutes from a hospital, easy. Running multiple calls. Visiting with some of the folks in Amarillo back in October, I'm hearing a lot different from them. You know, transport time's hour and a half. Hospital's not close. So we have to make sure that whatever we come up with, I think we use the latest in technology so that it's available to you. What's the research showing? What's the data showing? What's the science showing? And then look at that research. One of the things that we have been very negligent in Texas to do is to publish. I think sometimes we're afraid. We can say we're the best, or we can say we are, but to take the data and publish it, sometimes it's kind of painful. And like the committee, when we were in Corpus mentioned, we know that this is going to be a long, semi-painful process, but it's just one of those that needs to go on. So we will go from there. Any other comment on item 4 today? We'll have some other bigger modes. For those of you all, see some newer faces in the crowd. We will have work groups. We have work group meetings typically between every GTAC meeting. And those meetings go anywhere from 4 to 6 hours, and that's where we'll get the bulk of our work done. Started to do it in an hour and a half here. And we will come back and report those findings to you all and to DISHES. So committee, when we look at scheduling of future meetings, is July the correct month? Day? Friday typically?
During the day, yes.
I'm hearing July 15th. This is where everybody whips out their phones.
I can't make that one, Jody.
That work for you?
Hey, Jody,
Okay.
15 doesn't work.
Okay, 15th doesn't work for you. 22nd? National Ranger Schools that day for one. Okay. Kara, I'm coming down 29th.
Well, GTAC's on the 25th, 24th, Christmas to August.
As long as we stay close to 30, we should be okay. What about July 4th? No, it's okay. Yes, ma'am.
The beach.
15th to the 22nd?
I think that's the week of Pinnacle in San Antonio.
Which one? The 15th or 22nd?
Week of the 22nd.
Okay. Is June too early? June is too early. Or is it? Doesn't matter to me.
And the gym.
24th? That work for you, Greg?
Probably not.
Nope. Probably not. Nope. Okay. Instead of taking time here, let's shoot for July something or June something. I'll meet with you guys via email and we'll hash this out back and forth. Anyone want to host or do we want to come back here? This is the first time this year. Usually in the past, we've had people say, hey, will you come here, will you come here, will you come here? We can come back to Austin. Does someone have a burning desire or a need to host the Education Committee? Eddie?
Ozona, Texas would be happy to host you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Option 1, Ozona.
Can we look at the flight schedule to Ozona?
Southwest flight ozone.
I think Frontier flies near there. Dr. Beeson, would you fly us in there?
Hang on the wings.
Okay. July 15th or 22nd, 9 to 3? Okay. Location TBA. Announcements. Sam, I know you had some announcements earlier.
Next up, I'll let Dr. Remick talk.
Okay, good morning.
Hi, my name is Kate Remick. I'm a pediatric emergency medicine and EMS physician here in Austin. I also sit on the EMS for Children Advisory Council, both at the state and the federal level. And I wanted to just bring up a topic that we've been bringing up with the other committees at GTAC this session, which is the idea of pediatric facility recognition, and just give you a little bit of background on that. We know that when parents bring their children to the emergency department, there's a general expectation that those emergency departments are ready and able to care for their child, that they have the necessary equipment, supplies, education, and general overall readiness to be able to take care of those children. There have been guidelines that have been out for about 15 years. There are national guidelines that were written by the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American College of Emergency Physicians, and the Emergency Nurses Association, which outline general infrastructure that's needed for emergency departments to care for children. Talking about baseline levels, having equipment and supplies that are necessary for children, having quality improvement processes where they're doing any kind of chart review, even on the pediatric patients that come in, having staffing that's necessary, but we're not talking about high-level standards like pediatric intensive care units or NICUs or child life specialists, things of that nature, really just basic levels of care. There was a national assessment that was done in 2013 that looked at hospitals, acute care hospitals' compliance with these national guidelines. This was an assessment that was led through the Federal EMS for Children program. 83% of all acute care hospitals in the United States and U.S. territories participated in this. So over 4,000 hospitals participated in looking at doing a self-assessment to look at their compliance with just basic readiness guidelines. And what they found was that on a 100-point scale, the median score was 69, suggesting that there are a lot of gaps that exist in the ability of our nation to care for children. Now, why is this important? Well, over 80% of children are actually seen in non-children's hospitals. That's where the majority of children are being seen. They're not being seen in children's hospitals. There have been a number of states that, beginning actually in about 1999, that have developed statewide recognition programs to at least help increase awareness as to readiness guidelines and what's needed to care for children, and then actually to help to recognize those facilities or support those facilities to become ready. There is a national toolkit that's been developed that's free and openly accessible that has templates for policies and procedures and things of that measure to help hospitals to become ready. We know that less than 50% of hospitals have a disaster plan that includes pediatric needs. We know that less than 50% of hospitals, based on this national assessment, have a quality improvement process, or patient care review process, to even look at the children that are coming into the emergency department. So there's clearly a need, and these pediatric facility recognition programs have actually increased readiness scores by up to 30 percentage points. So on average, those hospitals that participate in recognition programs are scoring about 90% on a 100% scale, as opposed to in the 60s. So this is a pretty significant difference. What we've been asking of the other committees is just to see if they would support in concept the idea of pediatric facility recognition within the state of Texas, with the goal being to bolster the communities so that children don't have to travel 300 miles to go to a children's hospital to get the care they need, but how can we help community hospitals to understand the importance of readiness for children and to make sure that they're indeed ready to care for the children in their community. So the how in terms of implementing this has not been decided or figured out. We've begun conversations with a number of stakeholders, TTAF, THA, TORCH, TPS, the Texas Pediatric Society has already fully endorsed this. We've spoken to the RAC chairs who are in support of this, although the how we don't know yet. We've spoken to the Texas ENA, who's given us a formal endorsement. CHAT has given us a formal endorsement of the Children's Hospital Association of Texas. So we're continuing to work with stakeholders. The 14 states that already have these in place, various highly varied models for what a pediatric recognition program would look like. The great majority are voluntary. They don't need to be any kind of mandatory mandate. It doesn't need to be a tiered system. It could just be a, are you ready or aren't you? Very different ways that this could be implemented in the state. But what we're hoping for now is just, can we support this idea and concept and then begin to work out the details amongst the stakeholders.
Dr. Spell your last name for me.
Remick, R-E-M-I-C-K.
R-E-M-I-T-A.
I-C-K.
I-C-K, Remick, thank you. The toolkit that you said was available, is it online? Is it a physical kit? Is it?
It's online, pediatricreadiness.org. It's developed through all of these national organizations with support from many other organizations. I will say that the readiness guidelines are supported by the Joint Commission, AHA, American Medical Association, numerous other organizations. So this is really a national effort, but the toolkit was developed with support of all of these various organizations, and it's readily accessible online.
committee, you have heard comments? What is it you were looking for? What were you looking for from us?
I guess my ask at this point, or our ask at this point, would be, do you support this idea and concept at this point? And then would you be willing to, help us to, again, work with stakeholders in the, as we move forward to develop an implementation plan? But the ask right now is, do you support the idea of pediatric facility recognition and concept?
I think, Mr. Chairman, we know conceptually that unless we are a children's center, a children's hospital, our pediatric care, especially if it's not frequent, can decline as with any skill set or equipment inventory or things over time. So I think any concept or toolkit to make us more prepared to take care of our children would be beneficial.
Any other comment? Mr. Olson's looking at Texas results already. Anything we need to share? Okay. Because it is not on our agenda for us to move this or vote, committee, can we put this on the next agenda more as support? But anyone not support the idea or the concept? Okay. Unfortunately, if it's not on our agenda, it's hard for us to vote for it. So the announcement that you've made, the committee's heard for pediatric facility recognition program. It would also give us time to look at the toolkit and come back. We will add this to the agenda for our July meeting, and then give you the committee's recommendation and hopefully a good blessing.
Okay. I will say it was on most of the other committees' agenda. It was not on the stroke committee's agenda, but they did actually take a formal vote as to whether they were in support of it. Not sure if that's something you'd be willing to do.
Brett, I'm going to look to you for some guidance there.
I don't know the answer, so I'll put it on the next agenda, so it's.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that would probably be best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Brennan. Sam, thank you. Any other public comment?
I got a couple announcements, Jody.
Okay.
That go over while we wait for
Come
people
on.
to get up here. The first thing I want to remind people of the paramedic education programs is that in August, National Registry will start rolling out their national paramedic psychomotor portfolios. When they'll switch to scenario-based testing in January of 2017. So there's 2 scenario writing workshops that's being sponsored by the National Association of EMS Educators. It's going to be held in Texas, one in San Antonio, one in Fort Worth. And so please make sure the paramedic programs are familiar with that, sign up and participate in those. The committee may also get some requests for help with scenario writing from the paramedic programs. And that'll probably eventually trickle down to the basic side. And I will be formally asking the committee and sending y'all to look at our revised documents, draft documents for the self-study, how you write a program self-study. And a self-study is the licensing packet you put together for us to renew or create an initial education program. It's all your documents, policies, and procedures. We've worked on a new part of that, and so we're going to before we go forward with it, we want y'all's comments, suggestions, feedback. As soon as I get that finished, I'll be sending that to the committee so y'all can talk about it at your next meeting. So you can put that on the agenda. I'll be formally sending it to everybody on the committee.
Will this be for our July meeting or August?
July.
July, okay.
And that's just strictly for feedback to us. You don't have to vote on it, approve it. It's just strictly to give us comments and feedback on if we need to tweak it, fix it.
The information on the 2 workshops, I know one's up in North Texas, Fort Worth, the other one's in San Antonio. Do they have a brochure we can post or a flyer?
There's a link on the National Registry website on their front page. I don't remember exactly where it's at, but you can get to it off the National Association of EMS Educators or the National Registry webpage. Okay. I did have a link on our webpage till we're under reconstruction. But if you'll go to both of those, NAMC or NREMT, and then they'll link you to that.
Good.
My apologies, I almost walked up a while ago during the Beacon discussion and didn't, and then the more I thought about it, I thought I would just walk up and say something. You know, the Stop the Bleed stuff is gaining a lot of traction and momentum here in Texas. And you know, we've got a Stop the Bleed Texas page, and the Facebook's coming out. We're doing Train the Trainers. We're trying to get this out there, and we're celebrating the successes we're having getting it into schools and law enforcement and all those places where we really need to have it out there. And I've been approached twice since I've been here, came in Tuesday evening, with some concerns that I just want to make sure that you guys know about, because I think you guys have these connections and can help through peer pressure maybe make this right. But after this has started and it's starting to gain a little bit of steam and momentum, a couple of people have come to me with concerns that there are some folks around the state that are teaching these courses for money, say $200 a seat. These courses should be free. This is the same as the 10-minute CPR thing, right? Doc, I agree with you. I think we should get it down to where it's a 10 or 20-minute course. But I believe it's an NAEMT course, and so NAEMT instructors are reaching out there and trying to get in front of the power curve and trying to make some money off of this and as it goes forward. When we see that and hear that, we need to put a stop to that. All that's going to do is hurt our efforts to move this forward, because people are going to hear that people are charging that. So when a hospital comes to them or an EMS agency comes to them, they're going to naturally assume there's going to be a large charge for it, and they're going to turn them away. So we need your guys' help and your network's help of getting out in front of this and saying, look, I appreciate your effort, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but we really need to find a way to get this done as wide as possible, as best we can. And you know, there's efforts going on to find funding to support these programs around the state, and things, people teaching it like that, that can also damage those philanthropic efforts as well. So just for you guys to be aware, and if you could help get that word out there that this is meant to be public service, this isn't meant to be profit making. And it feels weird for me to say that, because I've been in this business for 30 years and I'm not opposed to making money off of it. But this is one of those things, the way it's being generated, the way it's being grown, we just need to be very careful that we don't damage it by people trying to make their own way in it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Karen?
Dudley? I am one of the 2 state coordinators for NAEMT's education. If John Phelps is the other one, if you guys hear those, could you let us know so that we can address that? I can work with NAEMT and we can figure out how to resolve those issues, but that shouldn't be happening.
Absolutely, and I will. I didn't ask, probably should have, but I didn't ask who or what or where. It's just two separate people came up and said, hey, you know, in just conversation about it, said, hey, I heard that, you know, somebody's teaching a class and they're charging $200 or something, and I'm like, whoa, you know, so, but yeah, and I think it's great. We put it on the internet as well now, so anybody hears about that, we'll let you know.
Perfect, thank you.
Nice to have those resources available. Any other public comment? Agenda for next meeting, guys. Stop the Bleeding will come back. Item 3. Item 4, discussion of CE will be there forever. Pediatric facility recognition, we'll add that one as item 3. And the request from dishes draft for self-study review for item 4. Any comment on those 4? Do we have a 5th? Okay. We will add CE rules. Thank you, I almost forgot about that. For all EMS levels and education rules. Okay, that will be item 5. And 6. Okay, got it. Committee comments? Anything today? Anything moving forward? So we'll have 6 items on the next agenda. July 15th to the 22nd from 9 to 3, maybe in Ozona. If we come there, you got a barbecue for all of us, dude. Okay, all right, all right. Any other public comment? Anything else? We're adjourned. Thank you.